Yeah, we do. All righty, here we go. It's time for another installment of Martial Law, this radio program intended to be for informational purposes only. The information does not constitute legal advice. The law is constantly changing. The information may not be complete or correct depending on the date and your particular legal problem. Each legal problem depends on its individual facts, and different jurisdictions have different laws and regulations. Because of that, you shouldn't act or rely on any information in this segment without seeking the advice of a competent attorney licensed to practice law in your jurisdiction for your particular problem. And Marshall Chriswell is that guy. Marshall, good morning.
Good morning.
Good to have you with us here today. You know, we're getting to that time of the season. We have property taxes coming due in a lot of our county school districts and in county taxes, and we're going to head toward the end of the year, and people wonder about property taxes. We hear about property taxes at the state level, and they're trying to work on those. But you got to work within the system that is in place right now, and there's a little program called the Clean and Green program. What is that, and how can you help people in that respect?
Well, the Clean and Green program is a preferential tax assessment program that is designed with the goal of preserving open spaces, forest land, and agricultural land in Pennsylvania. So it is a program whereby if you are enrolled, if you own land that qualifies for Clean and Green, and you're enrolled, then your property will be taxed based on the use value rather than the fair market value. So most of the time, traditionally when your property is assessed, they are attempting to assess the tax rate on the fair market value of the property that you own. But with the Clean and Green law says, okay, if you're enrolled, then we're going to tax it based on what you can use it for. So the agricultural value, which they base on the location of the property, the soil type, things like that, or the timber value of the property if you're enrolled in the forest reserve category of Clean and Green. So, and what this results in is the property owner paying a fraction of the property taxes that they would have under a fair market value system.
And it would be correct then to say that that system is much more advantageous than a system that is based upon the fact that if this property down the street sells for this and that property up the street sells for that, and those are way much higher than you paid for your property in the first place, your property value goes up anyway, right?
Absolutely. With fair market value, the way that fair market value is generally determined is through a sales comparison approach. So we're looking at the assessment office, when they're doing this tax assessment, they're saying, all right, well, what do comparable properties sell for in this area? And that, may or may not result in, the actual fair market value, or actually what somebody might pay for your property.
All right. So all of this being the case, and that program being there and being available to folks, how do we use an attorney to help us take advantage of this program? What do you do in that case? Well,
first of all, you need to know if you're eligible. And in order to enroll a property in Clean and Green, the number one thing is it's got to be 10 acres or more. It's got to be more than 10 acres, and then it has to meet one of the categories. So there are three Clean and Green categories. The first is agricultural use. If the property is used solely or substantially for for agriculture, the production of agricultural goods or livestock, things like that, then it can fall into the agricultural use. The second would be the forest reserve. So if this is substantially, the land substantially contains marketable timber, then it would fall under the forest reserve category. And then also there is the agricultural reserve category, which is basically open spaces. If you own more than 10 acres of ground that isn't necessarily wooded, but it's an open space, then you'd fall into that category. So you've got to understand, first of all, do I qualify? And then the second question is this something I want to do? When we had we talked about this a lot at the time on this program. There was a countywide reassessment that happened several years ago, and a lot of folks, farmers and landowners in Indiana County that owned swaths of land, their taxes jumped exponentially. And a lot of folks decided, all right, well, we're going to go into this Clean and Green program and drop and hopefully lower our taxes significantly, because that may be the only way that we can keep the property or continue the family farm. And so that happened, but you've got to go into it with your eyes open and understand the restrictions that it places on your use of your property. And that's the biggest thing, because once you've enrolled and once you're in the program, you can't get out without paying a penalty. You have to understand that once you have enrolled in Clean and Green, there are very limited circumstances where you can subdivide the property, where you can use the property for any other use besides what you've enrolled it for. Also, you need to understand that if you are part of the agricultural reserve category, that your property needs to remain open to the public in a limited way, but if someone wants to hike across the property or use it for a recreational purpose, then you have to permit them to do that. So there are lots of restrictions, and if you break the restrictions, there are fines, and then also you can end up paying 7 years of what they call rollback taxes. So if you subdivide the property and it was not an authorized subdivision under the Clean and Green Act, they can charge you a 7-year rollback tax, which would be the difference between the fair market assessed value and the use value, the Clean and Green value, for 7 years for the entire property, not just the part you're splitting off. So that is something that I've had clients run into. People come to me and say, well, I just did a subdivision of 6 acres to give my daughter and her husband a place to build a house, and now all of a sudden I've got a bill for, $8,000 from the county for rollback taxes. Why did that happen?
Yeah, that's something to consider, and you certainly want an attorney's advice in that. I want to go back to something you said a couple of moments ago, though. If I'm reserving a piece of land for agricultural use, and I'm opening it up for somebody to come in on their four-wheeler and go rip the ground up, do I misunderstand that when I simplify it to that degree?
So as I said, there are 3 categories: agricultural, forest, and agricultural reserve. Agricultural reserve is the category that we're talking about, and it is essentially open spaces. And you do have to, the property does have to be open to the public for recreational use, but the law allows the landowner to place reasonable restrictions on the types of recreation. You can prohibit motorized vehicles. You can prohibit folks coming on after dark. You can prohibit hunting. So you can, I believe you could probably prohibit fishing. So you can place restrictions on it, but it does need to remain open. You can't kick someone off if they're merely walking across the property.
Yeah. Okay. So those are real important considerations, and people need to understand them before they head into this. How involved or complicated would the whole process be to get your property enrolled?
So the enrollment is pretty simple. You can enroll with the Indiana County Assessment Office. They give you a form. It's 3 or 4 pages long, and most folks could fill it out themselves. I would definitely recommend having an attorney fill that form out. I have seen Oh, lots of mistakes on these forms. People that enrolled, enrolled more than one parcel that together that they could have maintained some more flexibility to be able to sell or develop one or more of those parcels if they wouldn't have put them all on one application. I've seen folks apply under the wrong category, which created more restrictions on the property than it should have. So, but it is it's a form you can obtain at the courthouse. You complete it, and so if it's completed by, I believe it's June 1st in any calendar year, then it's applicable to the taxes for the following year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's the way the application works.
Yeah, and there's no such thing as a simple form.
Yeah, right.
And attorneys know their way around forms in order. You can navigate yourself through a form in such a way that you're going to have the protections in place that you need to have in place. So it's not something to enter into lightly, but it is something that can really help folks, and that's where you come in.
It is. It's a program that can help people. There are lots of landowners in Indiana County and in the Commonwealth here that don't plan on developing their property, and that just want to keep this 100 acres that's been passed down through a couple of generations. They want to keep that in the family and preserve it, and that's exactly what this is for. Or for farmers who want to obviously maintain their farms. That's exactly what this is for, to preserve those lands and to give some tax relief to those folks so that they can keep their property. But there are lots of times that you definitely want to think about, okay, is this the right thing for me to do? Yeah.
It's one of probably, I don't know if I would use the word many, but of several at least tax abatement programs or tax easing programs that folks can take advantage of. And you probably know your way around all of those ways that might be the best advantage for somebody who has a property and doesn't want to have it out there at just fair market value, but might have an opportunity to ease that burden a little bit.
Yeah, that's right. As you indicated at the top here, there's always talk of reducing and eliminating property taxes in Pennsylvania. It's been talked about for years and years, and the legislature hasn't been able to agree on a way to do that can be passed. But in the meantime, there are programs like Clean and Green that are out there for folks if they know about them.
All right, so if somebody wants to know about Clean and Green and maybe get involved in that, what should they do?
Give me a call at 724-465-5826. You can stop and see me in the old RMP headquarters on Church Street in Indiana, 655 Church, or go online to www.westernpalawyer.com.
He is Marshall Chriswell. Thanks.
Thanks, Todd.
Have a great day.
You too.
It is the voice of Indiana County, WCCS, 101.1 FM and AM 1160. FM and AM 1160. FM